Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from Eddie Hearn is he said that he believes Naoya Inoue has already agreed to fight Alan Picasso next, so he will vacate his super bantamweight title. Hearn believes MJ Akhmadaliev will be elevated to full champion and that the pair could meet in a unification bout in Saudi in December.
December of this year?
I'm a big fan of Naoya Inoue. I have been for years. You can go back to some of the oldest videos on this channel and you will hear me praise Naoya Inoue for his fighting and what he's doing. But I have to be honest, if he vacates that WBA title to fight this Picasso kid, I mean, what the hell has Picasso done at this weight that MJ hasn't? MJ is a former champion, a more proven fighter than Picasso, to where if you knock out Sam Goodman and you move on and you fight Picasso instead of MJ, MJ has become more and more vocal over time, expressing his desire to share the ring with Naoya Inoue, and why shouldn't he? He is one of the better fighters at this weight, that goes without saying.
We'll see.
You never want to let it get to the point the way you're constantly apologizing for a fighter. I don't think Inoue is scared of MJ Akhmadaliev, and for what it's worth, I think he beats him. Though it doesn't matter what I think if they don't fight.
They have to fight. That's what we're all here for. That's what we're here to see. We're not here to make excuses for fighters.
No.
Apologize for fighters.
Making a fight with MJ for Inoue should be relatively easy, because we all know who the A-side fighter is.
The champion.
The draw, the money man. You can get MJ to go to Japan easy. But if you decide to fight this Picasso kid instead of him, well, it looks like what it looks like, and it's gonna look that way up until you fight MJ, and maybe he will.
Though until he does.
It's gonna look like a duck, and even saying that feels strange, because Naoya Inoue is not a fighter that gives you anything to complain about. He fights who needs to be fought in a timely fashion. That's what he's known for. But if they're dragging their feet on this, if they're sandbagging it to fight some nobody...
I seen the Picasso kid. The Picasso kid is good, but the Picasso kid is a nobody.
Compared to MJ, he's a nobody. MJ was a unified champion once. This has gone on long enough that the MJ fight should be the fight he has right after the Sam Goodman fight. You just think the pact with Turki El Sheikh and Riyadh season, so you could do it in Saudi for big money, or you could do it in Japan, you could do it wherever you like, but you need to do it.
And if you don't, it looks like what it looks like.
So Eddie Hearn says that he might meet up with that guy later on this year, much later on in December. If it's a situation where he drops the belt just to fight MJ for it again, that does give him the chance to become a two-time undisputed champion at this weight. We're a ways out from getting the answers we're looking for because he hasn't fought Sam Goodman yet. Remember, that's supposed to be going down in a few weeks.
All of this is preliminary. We don't know for sure if he's going to fight the Picasso kid, though if he does, it's not a good look.
Over to the men's cruiserweight division, where Boxing Scene asks, is Jai Opetaia boxing's next great cruiserweight? Just as cruiserweights don't have to look too far or too hard for their pot of gold, nor do they have to look too far or too hard for their template and inspiration, the gold can be found at heavyweight, of course, which is where so many cruiserweights end up, while inspiration can be found in the footprints of predecessors, those who have excelled at cruiserweight before becoming rich and famous as heavyweights. These days, it is perhaps easier than ever for a cruiserweight to find motivation ahead of embarking on a similar move. One last year, in fact, they could have seen Alexander Usyk, the former cruiserweight king, beat Tyson Fury, the consensus #1 heavyweight, not once, but twice, to replicate his cruiserweight success in boxing's marquee division. In the process of doing so, Usyk would have given no small amount of hope to other cruiserweights aiming to one day do the same, to both Fury, his opponent, and all the cruiserweights he left behind. Usyk showed that size is not everything and proved that if a cruiserweight can carry their speed and agility up to the 200-pound division, there is every chance they can cause trouble among bigger men.
A stout observation. An agile guy with a bit of speed in his feet, speed in his hands.
Quickness can wreak havoc in the heavyweight division because today's heavyweights are a lot bigger than they used to be and a lot slower.
Is that Jai Opetaia?
This week in Australia, Jai Opetaia, the two-time IBF Cruiserweight champion, makes his fourth defense of his belt against David Nyika, a 29-year-old whose frame, 6'6", 78-inch reach, is that of a heavyweight more so than your typical cruiserweight. Opetaia, for his part, is at around 6'2", not considered a particularly big cruiserweight, yet so great is his ability and ambition that there is already talk of him ending up as a heavyweight when the well at cruiserweight inevitably runs dry. So far, the Australian has beaten the likes of Maris Breedis 2 times, statuesque Jordan Thompson, durable Jack Macy, and Ellis Zorro. However, there is a growing feeling that the aggressive southpaw will need bigger and better tests in the future. Indeed. Even this next fight against David Nyika is an unheralded prospect, born in New Zealand but raised in Australia. It's happening only because Opetaia's mandatory challenger, Hussein Sankara, withdrew from the same opportunity due to a hand injury. In stepped Nyika to fill the void, but Opetaia, though grateful to have a fight, will know this is far from a defining fight. Nyika, at 10-0, is far too green for it to ever be that. The odds lean too heavily in Opetaia's favor for it to ever be that. For his defining fight, Opetaia will look towards Gilberto Ramirez, the owner of the WBA and WBO titles, later this year.
Yes.
Who knows, he may even need to jettison cruiserweight altogether and follow Usyk's lead and venture to heavyweight at some point. There at heavyweight, Opetaia would be walking the path paved, not only by Usyk, but also by the likes of David Haye and Evander Holyfield, both of whom won heavyweight belts after initially thriving as cruiserweights. He would be undersized, of course, yet much like Usyk, potentially able to capitalize on his mobility and high output in the presence of larger and more cumbersome men. Better yet, with Usyk soon to turn 38, and with many of the other top heavyweights a similar age, there is a chance that Opetaia could get the timing of this move. If it is a move he should elect to make, just right. Either way, a move to heavyweight will, as it always does, guarantee one thing: heftier paydays.
But I think he's been paid pretty well already. How many Riyadh season appearances has Jai Opetaia made now? What, 3? 4?
Fame and fortune has never been the driving force for Jai Opetaia. One senses it has its appeal, as it does for any professional boxer, but a man like Opetaia has many other reasons for fighting too. In fact, one glance at his admittedly brief reign at cruiserweight, and you'll see the workings of a champion who is just eager to fight, regardless of the caliber of opposition, since he won his IBF title!
Stop yelling.
Against then champion Maris Breedis in July of 2022, Opetaia has fought 4 times and made quick work of just about everybody other than Breedis. He would have fought many more times as well had it not been for the jaw injury he suffered in that first battle with Breedis, which required 3 implants in his jaw and a period of healing.
When I get that feeling,
His ability to continue fighting with his injury,
my mandible needs healing,
and later recover from it, it is a testament to Opetaia's mental strength and inherent toughness. You see this on display whenever he fights, but you also hear it in his voice whenever he speaks. I've always had that mental toughness to get shit done, he told me last year. Breaking my jaw and coming back is no big thing. I'm still here. I'll break it again, and I'll be sweet again. It doesn't matter.
That guy's a psychopath.
Not just able to find positives among debris and damage, Opetaia went even so far as to say he was all the better for having broken his jaw. He now felt tougher, he said, both mentally and physically, and suggested that on account of the bone in his jaw calcifying, it had become even stronger and made him, the one who takes the punches, somehow harder to hurt, harder to break. Added to all of this, Opetaia, at 29, knows he's come too far now and sacrificed too much to be anything other than resolute and determined. I'm sacrificing every day, time away from my family, all my good days, just to be in a gym, he said. All the celebrations, birthdays, weddings, I spent them in the gym. And then what? That's where the mental toughness comes from, bro. It's all the sacrifices I've had to make to do what I need to do. It's not an option. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. This is my ticket out of this shithole of a stressful life. I wouldn't say being a kid fighting grown men made me fearless, because everybody has that fear and doubt in the back of their head, but it helped me know what to do with it. You don't listen to it, do you? You just keep going! Although now much very going there, was a time not long ago when Opetaia, 26-0 with 20 KOs, considered retiring from the sport due to the severity of his injuries. Hand injury had kept him out for a total of 9 months, and it was during this dark period that he put on a lot of weight and wondered whether the mental and physical pain of a comeback was worth the eventual reward. 12 months later, however, he was a world champion. But I know those dark places are not gone, he confessed. I'll probably fall down them again in the future, and I'll also climb back out of them again. We've been there before. It's life! If nothing else, Opetaia's experience on the ledge gives him a newfound perspective and a greater awareness of what it is to both win and lose. Like so many, he will claim and believe he has faced bigger and scarier opponents than the ones with whom he trades punches on fight night. And he will believe, too, that even a move to heavyweight, should that be his fate, leads to no scarier a place than some of the other dark places he's inhabited in recent years. My biggest enemy is myself, Opetaia said. I can do whatever I push myself to do, but sometimes you find yourself stuck in those little deep holes. I've had to drag myself out of those holes a few times over the years, especially with these injuries and the road back. It's lonely too.
You want a hug?
There's nobody there to hold your hand and do it for you. You're by yourself. Your coaches are there in the gym, but yeah, when you go through these lonely roads, all you see are dark holes up ahead. Now though, having got past all of that, you can't hurt me. The physical pain is an escape.
The biggest fights of Jai Opetaia's career are up ahead, just past this David Nyika fight. And at this level, you can't afford to look past anybody. I mean, I know a lot of people say it, and it's a bit of a cliche,
but it's true. The biggest and best fights of Jai's career, the best performances, and the best money are all on the other side of this week's David Nyika fight. So he's got to treat this guy like he's an animal, even if the odds makers don't think so.
Make it like you're going in there with Mayris Breedis for a third time.
Make it like this guy double parked in front of your house and you don't know who he is.
Beat him silly.
I think this is the first time in a long time that Jai Opetaia will have fought in his native Australia. Those homecoming fights have a bad habit of going sideways, and you want to pay attention to that.
Crawford.
David Nyika is largely untested on the world stage, but he is a big boy. I'd wager that packs a big punch if you let him land it. This fight, because of where it's happening and when it's coming on in this part of the world, will go largely under the radar unless something unexpected happens.
Unless Jai loses.
Let's hope he doesn't, because he is the kind of fighter with the kind of intensity and fan-friendly style that makes boxing entertaining. The brutality, that's why we're here.
Not the gossip.
Not the he said, she said, or the purse splits, or what color nail polish Javante Davis buys at Sephora.
Bitch.
Jai's a fun guy to watch, but for us to keep watching him, he's got to keep winning. The biggest fights of his career are on the other side of this David Nikita fight.
It's Nyika.
Nyika fight. Men's heavyweight news. Is Martin Bakole being punished for beating Jared Anderson? Martin Bakole may have been punished for being too good after stopping Jared Anderson in a big upset. Bakole has become the bogeyman of the heavyweight division. He's 21-1 with 16 wins by way of knockout. He secured a massive win over Anderson in his last fight, stopping the rising star in the 5th round after dropping him numerous times. But at 33, time is of the essence when it comes to the big fights. Bakole has spoken about hurting Anthony Joshua in sparring, suggesting the latter is ducking him. However, for all of Bakole's recent success, he has not been awarded an appearance in Saudi Arabia. He is not the biggest name, but that is due to the reluctance of others to face him. Ben Shalom's relationship with the Saudis has not yet changed that, with Matchroom and Queensbury being the two closest promotional outfits with the kingdom, but Bakole has been left out in the cold, causing Paulie Malignaggi to respond. You talk about the Jared Anderson versus Bakole fight. That fight was about Jared Anderson. It ended up being a freebie for Martin Bakole. We can tell, looking at it in hindsight, that it wasn't about Bakole because nobody brought Bakole back. I feel like he's being treated unfairly. He should have been brought back.
They say he hasn't been awarded with an appearance at Saudi. That's not exactly accurate. He's fought in Riyadh season shows 2 times. He knocked out Carlos Takam, and more recently he knocked out Jared Anderson.
When I saw the headline at first, I thought it sensationalistic. To say that he's being punished implies that there is a higher authority. But at the same time, there's a legitimate question there. After 2 successful appearances at Riyadh season, why wasn't he brought back?
That is a legitimate question.
Bakole's next opponent is not clear. There are a variety of boxers he could target, like Joe Joyce, who's looking for a big 2025. He has been on a poor run of form, having lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. 2 losses to Zhilei Zhang and a defeat to Derek Chisora has pushed him further down the pecking order. But a win over Bakole would be enough to put his name back in the conversation for the biggest fights. Meanwhile, a Bakole win would be a big name on his resume, even if Joyce is not on his best form.
You don't go from getting dropped by Derek Chisora and losing a decision to then fight Martin Bakole. I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen.
The other option is to target a bout with Deontay Wilder. The Bronze Bomber has lost his last 2 bouts. Defeats to Joseph Parker and Zhilei Zhang led to calls for him to retire, but Malik Scotch suggested that Wilder will return to the ring this year. A Bakole fight would be a mega clash, given both fighters' ability to stop their man, since Wilder has much more to prove. A fight would test where Bakole is at. Bakole may need a few more statement wins before he is given the credit he is due. That's another fight that isn't likely to happen. Whoever wrote this article must not be in the loop. We've got a good idea who Martin's going to be facing in his next fight. He's going to be facing Nigeria's Efe Ajagba in what is set to be an IBF final eliminator to crown a mandatory challenger for Daniel Dubois. It's just a question of when and where the fight is going down. Martin Bakole addressed it himself in a recent social media post. That's who he's supposed to be fighting next. He's supposed to be fighting Efe.
So is he being punished?
Once again, punishment implies authority, that there's someone presiding over all of this and making a conscious decision to keep Martin out of the big fights. And I'm not sure...
There was an order for Martin to fight Zhilei Zhang, who then turned into Agit Kabayel. Both of those guys went in another direction, decided to fight each other.
The fight between them is a good fight. It's an intriguing fight, but it does look like they're seeking refuge with each other. Refuge from Big Bad Martin.
I don't know that punished is the word I would use. I think that he's been identified as a dangerous fight that's more trouble than it's worth.
Punished isn't the word I would use. Avoided is that he's been identified as a fighter who's too good for his own good, not providing a big enough financial incentive for the risk that he poses, and thus fighters would rather fight other fighters and go in another direction than deal with him, until such a time as it's worth their while.
He's avoided, he will be avoided, between what he did to Tony Yoka in France and what he did more recently to Jared Anderson in America.
You can see why. He's not a big name, not a big ticket seller, doesn't have a belt, he's not a champion, but he is dangerous.
He is capable, fearsome.
So, he's not going to be at the top of anybody's list.
Though fear not.
The fight that he's supposed to be having with Efe is an IBF eliminator, which will make him the mandatory challenger for the winner of Dubois versus Parker, whoever wins that fight. I think it's going to be Daniel Dubois. In other words, Martin is on the cusp of fighting for an alphabet title.
All he's got to do is stay on form and beat Efe.
If and when he does, whoever the IBF champion is,
they're gonna have a problem.
Thus, patience is required here. Just have to be patient. Remember, this is the IBF we're talking about. They don't dick around when it comes to their mandatories. They're gonna put the champion on the spot.
Martin will get a shot, so long as he stays on form.